All right, today is December 23rd, 2008.
Right.
And so you have to say how old you are, when you were born, and what your name is, and all that.
Okay, my name is May Mihail. I was born July 20th, 1927,
And
in Wollaston, Mass., 52 Berlin Street.
what was your full name
My full
that you
name.
were born with?
My full name is Thomaida Pano Lucan Cristo. I'm named after my mother, my father, and my grandfather.
And what were the names of your brothers and sisters?
My sister's name was Catherine. She was born May 11th, 1926. And then I was born the following year, July 20th, 1927. My brother Christy was born October 28th, 1928. So my mother and father were pretty busy. Then my father went to the old country for a little visit and gave my mother a break. Then my sister Evangeline was born on May 12th, 1932. My brother Arthur, but we called him Buster, was born June 28th, 1935. And lo and behold, April Fool's Day, 1951, our brother Louis was born in the hospital. We were all born at home in Quincy. Louis was born in Sancta Maria Hospital in Cambridge. That's where we lived at the time, in Cambridge.
All right, so growing up, what did your house look like?
All growing up. The house we were born in was 3 stories high. Big yard. Front yard, it had a 2-car garage. It had an attic upstairs where we used to play on a rainy day. It had a beautiful yard on the side where they had a grapevine, peach trees, pear trees, cherries. It was a wonderful life. We had a dog named Mike, about this big, a black dog. We had fun with him. We did.
And did your house have electricity and indoor plumbing and
Well, of
everything?
course, honey. We had indoor plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
We had a telephone.
Mm-hmm.
We had electricity.
Mm-hmm.
We had heat by coal. One day, my brother Christy, we called him Keatsy, were down in the basement playing, and the coal bin was empty. So we were playing in the coal bin. We didn't know that coal was going to be delivered that day. All of a sudden, the chute came in through the window from the outside. Coal, a ton of coal was being delivered. I was buried up to here. My brother saw that. He ran upstairs, got a hold of my mother and grandmother, and they come down and they took me out of the coal.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that one.
Mm-hmm.
How about family traditions that you had growing up with your family
With my
and your parents?
Well, there wasn't too many traditions. They loved Easter most of all.
Mm-hmm.
Our house, because our grandparents lived with us, my father's mother and father lived with us, and also my Uncle Nick, who wasn't married at the time, lived with us. My grandmother's 2 brothers and their children would come over and visit and stay a few days. We would push the double beds together and all sleep in 2 or 3 beds.
Mm-hmm.
There were big rooms. My grandmother's daughter, Cleanna, from Manchester, New Hampshire, had 7 kids. They would come down. It was just fun growing up. We had a lot of fun. There was always music going on in the house, singing. Our parents never got mad. They never did. Really never did.
Mm-hmm.
Had a wonderful childhood.
Mm-hmm.
My father had and grandfather had a store over here in Quincy, fruits and vegetables. My Uncle Nick had a liquor store on Hancock Street. I think I've showed you the corner where.
Mm-hmm.
But he loved the Red Sox, Uncle Nick, and he wasn't married, like I said. He had a car, and he would close the store and go to the games. It was funny. It was fun to have a young uncle like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we had lots of fun when we were kids.
Mm-hmm. How did your parents meet, and how did they fall in love and get married?
My parents, they were both born in Albania.
Mm-hmm.
But my father came here with his parents when he was younger. My mother's parents had died when she was young. She had two older brothers who were married and lived in the United States. And my mother grew up. I don't know who raised her, to tell you the truth. I remember her telling us she went to the Kennedy School in Albania. She was very bright. Then somehow her sister-in-law got the visas, whatever they had in those days, to bring her here. And they brought her here, and she lived with her brother and his wife, my Uncle Tom, my mother's brother, and his wife. Went to school here, graduated from girls' high school, and got married right after she graduated. They fixed her up with my father. They all lived in the West End at the time. And somehow they said, we're going to marry you off to this nice man. They called, my father's name was Pano, but they called him Benny. I don't know why in those days. And they were matched up. In fact, when she was a senior, that's when she got engaged. So as soon as she graduated, they got married April 26, 1925.
So she must have been 17 years old.
She was
then?
17 years old. And she had a child when she was 18, 19, 20. My grandmother was the head of the household. Or whatever monies they made in the store, my grandfather and my father and my uncle would give her the day's receipts at the end of the day, and Nana would dole out the money. This is what you need for the store, this is what you need for the bills, this is blah, blah, blah. And don't forget, my mom she was young.
Mm-hmm.
She probably looked older because she wore her hair in a bun in the back. But I remember her telling us that she had to ask her mother-in-law for money to buy stockings. How sad. My grandmother was a fabulous cook.
Mm-hmm.
She smoked. She wore black from head to toe because she had lost a son.
Her whole life after that, she wore black?
For the rest of her life, she wore black.
Gosh.
She had lost a son. I think he was about maybe 20 years old or something. He was sick, and he died. And she had a terrific figure. She had beautiful legs, and all day long she wore the black shoes with the Cuban heel. And when she cooked, she would put a white scarf all around her head like this. Not a piece of hair was showing, and she had long black hair that she wore in a pug also. She was a terrific cook.
What would she cook? What kind of food would she cook?
Well, she would make lamb stew. She would make yogurt, homemade yogurt, which I can do too pretty good. She made spinach pies and squash pies and chicken and pilaf and soup. Anything. She could cook anything. Brustul she loved. That was just all butter and dough.
Mm-hmm.
She was a terrific cook. She did all the cooking in the house. My mother, I guess, had us kids, plus, housework. She didn't work at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But we had fun growing up. We lived next door to a factory. The factory's still there, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all condos now.
Mm-hmm.
The house got torn down last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's there now, to tell you the truth, but I have pictures. I remember once, I don't know why I remember this fact. My brother Keitsy was the devil. It was raining. It was raining hard one day. And he just took off all his clothes. He was probably 4 years old. And he went out and running in the gutter up and down in the rain. He was funny. And I remember my father had a truck because on Saturdays he would go Howard's Neck, all around Quincy, selling fruits and vegetables. And sometimes he would take one of us kids with him on a Saturday morning. And he'd be out there, peaches, Freestone peaches, bananas, 3 pounds for 10 cents, whatever they were. And the people would come out of their houses and buy the fresh fruits and vegetables. It was a good little business.
He even worked on the weekends.
Right, and my grandfather would stay in the store. And on Sundays, the day off, if there wasn't a picnic to go to, my father loved the beach. He would take us down to Wollaston Beach, and he could float. He was a good floater. He would put us on his stomach, and we would float. I remember these things. These things just come to your head. Or he would take us to Robbins Pond was the name of it.
Where was that?
Robbins Pond was down towards, I think it was down towards Bridgewater that way, because we would sit in the truck. It was an open truck in the back, but it had slats. I mean, we couldn't fall out. And we'd sing all the way going to Robbins Pond. And it was a nice pond because you could go out and out and out and still be up to here. And it had a skating rink, roller skating rink there.
Oh, fun.
I always liked to roller skate. So my sister and I would roller skate around. And then we'd go in the water, and they had swings, all sorts of stuff for the kids. They would bring picnic baskets full of chicken and fruits and vegetables. We would go for the whole day. Sometimes we'd have a few of the cousins with us, whoever happened to be down that weekend. We had a wonderful childhood. Wonderful childhood.
How about school? Did you like school?
I loved school. I was the only one of the kids that liked school. I got good marks. I was always on the honor roll. And my only regret is that I didn't go to college.
Now, why didn't you go to college?
Well, because my father said girls don't go to college in those days. You have to be married by the time you're 21. Otherwise, you're going to be an old maid. Whoa.
No.
An old maid at 21.
No, but you weren't an old maid.
No, I wasn't.
How did that happen?
Oh, well, my sister Kay and George had gotten married in July 6, 1947. And in October of that year, there was an Albanian dance. We had a lot of Albanian dances at that time. And we went to all of them. And George and Kay took me to the dance with them. I think it was at the Hotel Copley Plaza. We usually had them at the Hotel Bradford. We went to the Copley Plaza. George and Kay were dancing. George loved to dance. He was a great dancer. Kay, but they were newlyweds. They were dancing. And I was just standing around, and a kind of cute guy came up and said, what are you doing? I said, oh, nothing. I'm just standing, and my sister and brother-in-law were out there dancing. He started talking to me. He was kind of cute. He was very cute. We started talking. He didn't ask me to dance because he wasn't a dancer. But I didn't care. He asked if he could take me home. I said, well, I don't know. I have to ask my sister. She was older than me. And my sister and brother-in-law came over, and I introduced them. And it's funny because they both lived in the West End, but they really didn't know each other. Especially my brother-in-law, George. He had been in the service, so he wasn't home too much. And I said, oh, his name was Philip. I said, Philip wants to take me home. Is it okay? Because we came by cab.
So he wanted to take you home in a cab to your house.
Yes.
He was going to drop you off there.
Yeah. I lived in Cambridge at that time. And my sister said, yeah, she told me on the side, He's Albanian. Nothing's going to happen to you. You can go home with him. I said, okay. And he took me home in the cab and asked for my number. So I gave it to him. He said, I'm going to call you. I said to myself, oh, yeah, right. But I said, nothing's going to happen with me. I'm kind of cute, you know. So he did. He just said good night. Didn't even kiss me good night. He said, I'll call you tomorrow, which he did, and wanted to know if we could go out. I said, well, I have to ask my mother and father. It's not like it was today, you know. Hey, Mara, I'm going, and that's it. So I told my mother and father. My father had the store downstairs. We lived over the store. You saw it. I said, this Albanian boy brought me home last night. What was his name? I said, Philip Mihail from the West End. He lives with his father because his mother was in the old country. And my father and mother knew his father, Rako his name was. And they said he was a very nice man. And I said, well, he wants to take me out. They said, that's okay, you can go out. Of course, he was Albanian. And I was nearing 21 years old. I was 20 years old at the time. So we came the next night. We got on the train, we went in town to the movies. We went out for coffee and something later. I had to be home by midnight. That was my curfew.
When you were 20 years old?
When I was 20. Didn't have a key to the house. I used to ring the bell and Mom would come down and open up the door. So he kept asking me out. He wanted to take me to the Thanksgiving Day dance in November, the following month. And he asked me if I was going to go, and I said, yeah, I was going to go to that with my sister and her husband. He said, well, I'd like to take you. I said, well, that would be nice. And he did. And we went to the Hotel Bradford. And it's funny, because I remember this, too. Now, mind you, he took me. He's waiting for me to pay my way into the dance. I said, well, you asked me, honey. I didn't ask you. So he paid. He paid. Then he starts talking with his friends who were all there, having a beer or whatever they were having, or just talking. And the music is going. They had nice bands in those days. I'm waiting to dance because I like to dance. I'm standing around. This guy's not asking. Takes me to the dance. Doesn't ask me to dance. Yakking with his friends over there. So somebody asked me to dance, and I did. I must take after Christine. And then he saw me dancing. The dance was over, and he said, oh, I saw you dancing with that. I said, well, you never asked me to dance. You're busy talking with your friends over there. So that was the only dance I had with anybody else that night. The rest of the night, we danced. I mean, 1, 2, 1, 2, you know. He wasn't a dancer, but we danced. We held on to each other.
And you'd whisper in his ear, tell him how to dance, right?
Yeah, 1, 2, 1, 2. And took me home. He did kiss me that night.
Ooh.
Nice.
Was that your first kiss?
Yep, nice gentle kiss. Asked if he could see me again. His friend Maddie was getting married in a couple of weeks. Maddie had a December wedding, and he wanted to know if he could take me. That's why I had to ask my mother. And my mother said, no, you can't go, because you don't have a nishan. Nishan at that time meant a little locket, or a little pin, something to show that you're going steady. I said, no, my mother won't let me go because I don't have a nishan. He was a little upset. So he went to the wedding, whatever. And after that, though, he said, we're going to get engaged. Wow, that's pretty good, huh?
Did he propose? It was different
No,
back
he
then,
just
right?
said we're gonna get engaged. We're gonna get married. Yeah, he didn't never get down on one knee and propose. We just
You just knew?
assumed we knew it was gonna be. That was it. Why wait?
Mhm.
You know, we never tried before we bought in those days. So, like around Christmas time, I said to my mother and father, we want to get married.
Now, this is still that same year.
Yeah.
Right? Mhm.
They said, my father said, you want to get married? We just had a wedding last July. Gee, another wedding, you know, in the following year? I said, well, we're trying to get engaged in January. So my parents said that was fine. They liked him. He would come over every day. We saw each other every day. My family liked him. My kid sister Van always said, if you don't marry him, I'm going to marry him. She was only 15 or 16. So we had the day of the engagement party. It snowed and it snowed and it snowed. The party was going to be at a hall in Cambridge. Everybody was invited. Phil came to the house to pick me up. Had to wear a gown. I didn't have the ring. The ring he gave me at the party. But also before that, we went together and bought the ring.
Mhm.
He said, I only have $300 that I can pay for the ring. We didn't know how much rings cost. But I picked out the ring. We went together and picked out the ring. And he came in a cab to get me. Everybody else was at the party. But Phil came to the house with a cab. He had to carry me. I was skinny then. He had to carry me over the snowbank into the cab. And the party wasn't too far. It was right a couple of streets away. And he had to carry me into the hall there. And all his family, well, his father, his mother and brother and sister in the old country, but they had some cousins there or whatever. Everyone on his side would give me, the bride, a gift. I had to take out a tray with water or whiskey, something like that, to each one of his relatives. Like my father-in-law gave me a watch from him, something else from his wife, something from his son, something from the daughter, who were all in the old country. And all the other relatives, some sort of jewelry they put on the tray.
Mhm.
And then the last person I had to go on was my boyfriend. And it was like a custom in those days. Whoever stepped on the foot of the bride or groom, if the bride stepped on the groom's foot, she would be the boss, and vice versa. Well, picture me, I had this heavy tray over here with gifts, and then he was going to give me the ring then. Somebody had to take the tray, but he stepped on my foot. That didn't mean a thing. Put the ring on my finger, and I'm not sure if we kissed or not, tell you the truth. But the party went on, and there was music, and there was a Greek band and everything. It was just a fun time. Then we decided to get married on June 6th that year,
June 6th, what was that, 1948?
1948. And we told my parents we want to get married on June 6th. What could they say? They said, he's a nice boy. And my father said, well, she'll be married before she's 21, so we were to her. So we had a beautiful wedding. 23 people in the wedding party.
Oh my gosh.
Had a beautiful reception. Wonderful honeymoon. New York, Washington, Virginia. Went on the train because I didn't want to fly. And it was wonderful from then on. We had talked about children when we were engaged, And we said we only wanted 2 children.
And how many did you have?
2.
2. He kept his word.
Yeah. And I said I didn't want any children for a year. You have to promise me, because we were going to live in the West End, which was full of Albanians, and they would count on their fingers. 9 months. If you were married 6 months, I didn't want anybody talking about me. So, Grampy, he said, I promise you, we won't have kids for a year. Of course, I quit my job. I was working at the insurance company. I had nothing to do all day. I mean, it was a lovely apartment. It was on 52 Barton Street in the West End. 5-room apartment, 2 bedrooms, a living room, the kitchen, and another little room, which later we used as the nursery. On the 2nd floor, all the furniture was new. My father had bought everything new.
And he lived with you, right?
And he lived with us. He lived with us for 16 years. He was a wonderful man. He was a wonderful man, he really was. No matter what I cooked, and I wasn't the greatest cook, he would say, thank you, Noosa. Noosa is what he called me, bride, that means. Like, I think I've told you kids this before, I know I have, about the spinach pie my girlfriend Emily and I made. I don't know what the heck happened that day. Anyways, made this spinach pie. And they came home from work. They both worked in the factory together in Watertown, Peerless Press. My father ate it. God. I was going to swear, but I'm not going to swear. He would eat everything. That was delicious news, so thank you. And he would always say, thank you very much. And your grandfather said, ugh, what was that? I said, that was spinach pie. He says, ugh. It really didn't come out good. But my father, he would never say anything bad. I said, well, that'll be the last spinach pie you get from me, honey. I never made another one. But my granddaughter Christine made a delicious one.
So how about when did you decide to have children? Talk about your first child that you had.
Well, after a few months, I was getting bored. I would go up to Charles Street Station when Phil would be coming home to meet him after work, and we'd walk arm in arm back to the apartment. And in the evening, we'd go down by the Charles River, was right there, and go walking every night in Charles River. You met a lot of people. It was fun. Then after a few months, I said, I'm kind of bored. Why don't we have a baby? And Grampy said, no, I promised you 1 year. I said, uh-oh, got to get out of this one. I said, well, the promise is broken. I got pregnant. Oh, they were thrilled. They were thrilled. Both my parents were thrilled. Don't forget, my mom was only in her 40s when she became a grandmother. And my sister wasn't pregnant.
So was Auntie Linda the first grandchild?
Yes.
Oh.
We had Linda the following year, July 30th, 1949. And in those days, like I said, we didn't have a car. It was hot that summer. And at my parents' house, there was a roof. We would sit out on the roof. I spent like a couple of weeks there. My father had a car, so just in case I had to go to the hospital, he was going to take me to the Lion Inn Hospital. But Phil came every night after work over there. And I remember my brothers and sisters, they would put a big bucket of cold water, put my feet in there, just to cool me off. And then sure enough, one day, Phil was at work. I was in the bathroom. I came out of the bathroom and there was water all over the place. And I said to my mother, I said, gee, man, I don't know what the heck happened to me. I says, I think I went to the bathroom. She says, oh, your water broke. I says, yeah. I didn't know. She says, I think it's time to go to the hospital. Either he must have been there that day. It must have been a sad day. I forget the day. Anyways, Phil and my father took me, it was about 5 o'clock in the evening, to the hospital, which was in Boston. And in those days, they dropped you off at the front door. They said, okay, you men go home. We'll call you when the baby's here. They put me in the wheelchair, and Phil and my father went back home. Went back to Cambridge to wait for a phone call. And they took me in. I was having pains, but it didn't bother me. I could take pain. And the doctor said, oh, he says, I think we'd better do an x-ray. You might be having a breech birth. I didn't know what breech meant. And I was so smart.
But they didn't talk about stuff like that, right?
No.
No one ever said anything.
And they said, we're going to have an x-ray. I said, okay. So they had an x-ray, and the doctor said it's going to be a breech. I didn't know what breech meant. Anyways, I had a very easy delivery, a breech birth. They called home. Phil came up, and my father-in-law came up too, and beautiful red roses. Oh, they were happy. First child, it was a girl, but they were happy because it's a healthy baby. Had to stay in the hospital 10 days in those days. Almost in bed. You could hear some of those girls screaming and screaming at their husbands when they came in. You son of a this, you son of a that. I said, I wonder why they're swearing at their husband. You made me go through all this pain. For God's sakes. So, God, they had everything, the crib, everything was set up in the little room and everything. My parents bought the bedroom set. My father-in-law bought this beautiful carriage. I got all sorts of gifts. Vanjie, my kid sister, sent a birthday card every month. Every month. 1 month, 2 months, with a gift. Talk about spoiled. First grandchild on both sides, don't forget. So, and in those days, you did not name your child.
Who named?
The godparents named the child. And the godparents lived right around the corner from us. They had a store on Leverett Street, and they had 2 boys, Peter and Billy. Peter was maybe 16, and he would come over all the time to see. He'd say, what's your favorite name? What's your favorite name? He would say to me. I always loved the name Linda because I loved the song Linda, which I still have the record. And he said, oh, okay. And went to church. Well, the mother didn't go to the church for the christening in those days.
It's weird.
No. And they named the baby Linda Diane. And they came home, and whoever told me the name, you would give that person $1. That was like a custom in those days. And she had everything. Needless to say. Needless to say. We were just thrilled. Your first child is a big thing. We would take her for walks along the Charles River there, and she was a colicky baby. She would cry during the night. I would walk up and down with her because I wanted Phil to sleep. I didn't want him to cut his hands in the machine at work. And called the doctor one day, a big doctor, Smith his name was, the baby doctor, and he said, she's colicky. Let her cry. I said, I can't let her cry. My husband has to sleep. I didn't require much sleep. Besides, when you have a baby, you sleep with one eye open anyway. But she grew out of that. she grew out of that. She loved her grandmother. She loved her grandmother. Her grandmother was her idol. And they would take her everywhere. If there was a picnic on Sunday, they'd say, let us take Linda. I have pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Let us take her in the playpen. Mm-hmm. Then after a few years, we decided to have another baby.
Mm-hmm.
And this time we had the boy. I didn't get any flowers that day.
Mm.
Oh, Grampy jumped right in the bed with me. He was so thrilled there was a boy.
Mm-hmm.
But gee, no flowers. I got them the next day. Everybody was happy because it was a girl and a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was going to be the end for us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my father-in-law and the godfather had a few words. Well, the godfather did. He wanted us to leave our church, St. John's, and go to St. George's because the bishop was coming in or something at the time. My father said, I'm not leaving my church.
Mm-hmm.
And they got mad. The godparents got mad. So we had no godparent for David.
Mm-hmm.
So Angelo Andon was one of Grampy's friends. So we decided to have him as the godfather. And we did christen him at our church. My father said, what are you going to name him? I said, I always loved the name Michael, but Michael Mihail just didn't go.
Right.
And I liked the name Mark. That didn't Mark Mihail. I said, David's a nice name. David Philip.
Mm-hmm.
I would make sure that Philip's name was going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And my father said, that's a Jewish name.
A Jewish name.
I said, I still like it. And that's what we named him. That's what we named David.
David Philip. After Grampy.
After Grampy, right.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of baby was my dad?
Oh, well, the second baby's always good because you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
He was quiet. He took after me.
Mm-hmm.
He did. He still does, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm not quiet now, but I was the quietest of all the kids. Whatever my sister Kay said, you did it.
Mm-hmm.
She was the boss.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of us just did what she told us to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very quiet. I was very studious.
Mm-hmm.
I loved to write all the time.
You still do.
And I still do.
Mm-hmm.
My sister was good with her hands. She could sew and crochet, and she could knit, but she was very good with her hands.
Mm-hmm.
She made hats. She went to trade school.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't academically inclined.
Mm-hmm.
I took the college course when we went to school. And I played basketball. I was the captain of the basketball team.
Oh. And where was
Woodrow
this at?
Wilson Junior High School.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Dutcher High School for girls, which was all girls.
Mm-hmm. Did you play basketball there too?
No, I didn't play basketball there. But I was involved. I loved school.
Mm-hmm.
I did. I liked school. I was on the honor roll all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you going to do? We got jobs after school
Mm-hmm.
at Woolworths in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
At Easter time, they really hired you because you had to make up the Easter baskets.
Mm-hmm.
And we would do those, and they would sell them in the store there. And one time I worked at the Boston City Hospital, candy striper they called them.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of liked it. I was, I had visions maybe be a teacher or a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
But then one of the nurses said, I want you to help me with this patient who has expired. So I went, and the patient was wrapped up, but on the big toe was a card with the name, and it said she was Albanian. I said, oh my God, this person's Albanian. I didn't know who it was,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't recognize the name. But after that, I said, no, I didn't want to be a nurse. I don't think I could have handled that. I couldn't handle that. But
you thought maybe you wanted to be a teacher too? I think you would have been a good teacher.
I would have been a very good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I would have.
What subject would you have taught, or what grade?
I would have loved, I think, 7th, 8th grade.
Mm-hmm. Oh, tough year.
The teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
You have to kind of keep those kids under control.
Mm-hmm.
Although in those days, it's not like today.
Mm-hmm.
My grandson's a teacher, and it's tough out there today. It's tough. It's tough. So that's that. After a few years, after I had David, no, it was before I had David. My mother and father, we decided to send them up to New Hampshire for vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And we said we would run the store for them, go away for a week, because they loved the lake up there at Lake Providence and the cottages, because we went up there all summer.
Mm-hmm.
Not all summer, but a month. We each had our own little cottage with the outhouse. We had fun. Then they came home from vacation, and after a couple of months, my mother, she was at that time short and chubby, and she said to my sister and I, we were both married, she said, "Girls, I think I'm pregnant." We said, "Way to go, Pop." She says, "Really?" She said, "I think I'm pregnant. I'm going to the doctor." And she went to the doctor on Magazine Street, and he said, "No, you have a tumor." She said, "No, I don't have a tumor. I know I'm pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
I've had 5 children."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "No." She decided to go for second opinion.
Smart.
She went to another Greek doctor, and he said to her, "You are pregnant. You're going to have a lovely baby boy." He just said that.
Yeah.
And she came home and she told us, she said, I am pregnant." My father was thrilled. He was thrilled. And then, like I said, they had the store. So we knew all the customers around the neighborhood there, the neighborhood store. And my mother didn't want to tell the customers.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the customers, Jimmy Richardson next door, he said, "You better tell them because they're going to think it's Van's baby, our kid sister's baby."
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gee, my mother said, "Oh my God, I never thought about that."
Mm-hmm.
And she told the customers, she said, I'm pregnant."
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was happy. My father was thrilled for that.
Mm-hmm.
We were all happy. One night, Phil's cousin, by Sotia's mother and father, asked Grampy and I to sleep over with Linda. We didn't have David then, when Ma was pregnant. "Come and sleep over." She used to make, she was a good cook too, Olympia. She loved, on Friday, she would make fish with onions and Vi said, "Come on, sleep one night." They lived in Somerville. So we did. We went over and slept that night. And the next morning, their telephone rang, and Violet said, "Oh, your father wants to talk to you, May." And I said, "Hi, Pop, how you doing?" He said, "Ma had a baby boy." I said, "April Fool," because it was April Fool's Day. I said, "April Fool." He said, "No, she really did. She's in the hospital. She had he was almost 9 pounds.
Oh gosh.
A beautiful baby boy."